And welcome to the Big Gunner Podcast. Big Blue making the moves. So, we're going to talk a little bit about next week when the schedule comes out. May 14th, schedule reveal. I think the most important part of this schedule reveal is how tough the first month of the season is going to be for us. More importantly, for two things. One, the fan base, where the cries come from, what's happening during these games. Is the offense making the right moves that they need to make to be better? Is the defense doing what they need to be better? And are we getting the results we want? Because we know that Coach Dable and Shane are on the block, according to the end of last year and through the offseason. And I think this is what's going to affect the decision making of the team very early on. So it's very key to see who we got. We have a vicious schedule. Hopefully we get a little bit of relief, if you can even call it relief, or we might want to play the tough teams and maybe get some wins and start the ball rolling in the right direction. Maybe we want to see Philly early on. Maybe we get lucky enough to go play that first game down there after when they're hanging the banner to rub it in, but we basically handed it to them last year. Maybe that will be good motivation to set the season up when things are starting off slow. Maybe we get guys, we're healthy, we get guys off to good start. So I'm for one to make the schedule nice, but I wouldn't mind a tough schedule either to get us going and play that tougher part early on to see what happens. So that's a really important part, I think, of what we're going to see in the next few weeks. Mini camp comes in, players get together. I think that starts on the 19th, where we get a good look at the team as a whole. Get players to meet each other, obviously, and get to develop some continuity with no pads, and then we go into camp and obviously late July. Also, the story that I think is very intriguing with the legends from my era was Abdul Carter looking to wear number 56 and also or number 11. And those both worn by legendary players Lawrence Taylor and Phil Simms. I kind of liked LT's reaction that he kind of said, yeah, go develop your own number and get there yourself. Maybe you should go wear 57, be the one right after him and say, okay, I'm going to make 56 and 57 back-to-back numbers, the Hall of Fame numbers that they should be. Hopefully Carter puts that kind of, a career together for us. So, but yeah, that's one. And I kind of like Phil Simms following emotion, saying, that number 11 was a quarterback number. Maybe I'm not going to let him wear it. So who knows if that'll change, but I kind of like the reaction of veteran players saying this. I think it all stemmed from Malik Neighbors last year getting permission from the Flaherty family to wear Ray Flaherty's legendary number 1. I think it was one of the first numbers ever retired in the league, by the way. And the Flaherty family gave them that grace. So I thought maybe that was somehow in discussions that maybe the players that are alive and legendary that from our era that that they had Sims and Taylor would have given over the number, which I kind of like that. Let's go, Abdul. Get 57 and make it one next to Lawrence or make it one up. And that's what I think. Wear 57. That would be my hope and prediction. Or better yet, wear 98. Go wear 98 and see if you want to take his college number in there and see if you want to be that kind of player. I don't know, just suggestions to come across, but yeah. So that was the fun part of the week with the Giant stories. I think what we're really going to look at now is where we go with the quarterback position. So my thought is Russ Wilson should be the quarterback week 1. I don't want to rush Jaxson Dart, but I think it's all going to come down to a very similar situation in Kansas City where Pat Mahomes the rest of the year, and they felt they had to move Alex Smith after that because Mahomes was so good in practice. By week 10 or 11, I heard a story that the GM and Andy Reid got together and made the decision that they were going to do something with Mahomes. But basically, you kind of couldn't because Kansas City at that point was in the process of getting home field advantage throughout the playoffs in his rookie year. Had a big bad loss to Tennessee in the first divisional game, and I think that's what spurred on Pat Mahomes' career. I think they felt like at that point, after blowing a 19-0 lead, they could have moved on from Alex Smith, and they did, and got Pat Mahomes in there and starting. The rest is history. So I think in this case, Dable's got his guy. From what I understand, he wanted Jaxson Dart the whole time. He offers a lot of mobility, good pocket presence, takes the shots in the pocket, all like the old guys that used to hang in there and take shots. You can see him. He takes them. So he's tough enough to handle pocket. But, again, he offers you a lot more mobility. Maybe not as fast as Daniel Jones, but might be as good a, maneuvering athlete to get make guys miss and in the coming out of the pocket. So he offers us that. The thing that I see with Russell Wilson is he's great a guy as he was doing that, breaking down a play, moving his feet and going. It didn't seem like he did that quite often with Pittsburgh. Now he's in his mid to late 30s. I think that's the problem we're going to have with Russell Wilson is that can he create that play like he used to do when he was destroying people in Seattle by going to, having that extra mobility. Now, the offensive line that was playing very well up until Andrew Thomas's injury last night, we basically kept the same nucleus. So that tells me that Brian Daboll's really put this on the quarterback play last year. So I feel Russell Wilson should provide us with better quarterback play. I mean, no one's ever going to argue was Russell Wilson have a better career than Daniel Jones. So it's a no-brainer. And we probably thought this, I think maybe 3 or 4 years back when we were getting Daniel Jones, there was rumors out there that we were making a move for Russell Wilson, much to some of my guys who I talked to, they're deep, long Giant fans who are like myself, were against. I wasn't really upset about the move now to get Russell in here. I just think that we had to. I just like that we did draft a quarterback the way we did. I like the way we handled the draft. I like that we got our guy, Jaxson Dart. Last year I wanted Jaden Daniels. This year my guy I wanted in this draft was Jaxson Dart. So thought I hit last year on Daniels. Hopefully we make the move and hit on Dart this year. I think he's going to be the guy with the most upside in this draft. So we'll see. But it's going to be interesting. I think what happens if we get off to a slow start and Dart improves, unlike the Chiefs, we're going to insert Dart in. I think it comes down to there was no pressure on Andy Reid to make these decisions back when he was the coach. There is a lot of pressure on Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen. I think what Schoen has done in this offseason is kind of stabilize his situation. Seems like the fan base, probably ownership, has to be happy with the moves we made and how we picked. What we got in this draft. We got the defensive tackle in the 3rd round, Cam Scatterbo in the 4th round, stole a veteran offensive a good offensive tackle that was projected a 2nd round in the 5th round. So again, if we get any kind of production out of this draft like we got last year's draft, you kind of got to think that Joe Schoen should be safe provided we win. That's what it comes down to. And I'm not saying win 12 games. I'm saying get around 500, have meaningful games in December when the crowd doesn't want to sell off the tickets. One thing I know the Mara family's upset is attendance in games when the visiting team now seems to have a presence in most of these NFL cities, that the road teams always travel very well, especially the popular road teams. So we don't want – that's one thing, and I'm in full agreement. When I had a season ticket holder, back then, I never wanted to sell my tickets to an opposing team fan. I might bring one in as a guest with me, but I would never give 4 tickets to a Cowboys fan. That just wasn't going to happen. But now, because the prices are so high, some people use this to make money. This becomes a more prominent way of dealing. You don't really care who gets the ticket if you get your price. So I just look at it like meaningful games in December is what we're hoping for this year. I think the over-under now, which was 4.5, has gone to 5.5. I think that's a more fair number. I don't know that 6-11, if we even hit that total, keeps these guys around. I think 8 wins will probably have to do the trick to keep them around. And obviously, if we play well and avoid injuries, can we go farther? I think we can. I think the number one thing, I use this stat all the time, was the Andrew Thomas injury. We were 3-17 the last 2 years when he doesn't play, and I think he's got to stay healthy. And either that or we better develop Mobo or somebody as a backup left tackle to help him, if God forbid he does miss a game. But we're going to count on John Michael Schmitz. I think he's a big key to this whole thing with the offensive line. We got to stay healthy. We lost Runyon for a few games last year. We put a lot of pressure on Eleanor to move all over the place. When he came here, he was playing more inside with the Raiders. Now we got him right tackle, and he looks like that's where he's going to be this year. And I think he did a really good job up until he had to switch over to left tackle when Thomas got hurt. The rumor is now we're moving Evan Neal inside, test him at right guard. A little competition there. That should be interesting. Hopefully that's a fit, and he basically gets himself together like basically like Mekhi Becton did in Philly. That big size guy to not have the pressure of the smaller edge player there. And the other thing too is now we have 2 or 3 really good edge guys. So our tackles should get better just in practice. Getting a guy with the quickness of Abdul Carter, Thibodeau is a very smaller, faster guy, the experience in Brian Burns. So when our first units go up against our first units, we should get better at the tackle position just from the competition in camp. So I'm looking forward to seeing this team. It's really about staying healthy. The depth in these teams, the better teams seem to acquire depth a little bit better than the weaker teams do. Everybody's going to suffer through injuries. We just can't go through. I think we were the top team in the league with first game starters due to injury. In the last 10 years, I think we're number one. So I think all it is, we got to stay healthy and then go. And then again, it's going to come down to, I think the pressure that we'll apply defensively will help our secondary. We didn't get any turnovers, no interceptions last year. I think we went almost 13 games without a pick. No, that can't happen. If we're going to be competitive defensively, we have to find a way to turn people over, get our defense off the field, and find a short field for our offense to create points. These are the things I think we're going to be the focus of Bowen's defense, and I think our offense will be better. I think the extra experience for our skill people, Neighbors getting a second year under the belt, a new quarterback, veteran quarterback who's won and proved it, should carry a little bit more weight in the huddle. I think the Giants are going to be a better football team. The hard part is going to be dealing with our schedule. You got Philly twice. You got an upcoming Washington twice. We just heard this morning that Dallas made a move to get George Pickens. So our corners are going to get big work with Lamb and Pickens now at against Dallas. So that's 6 games right there. We got to go out and play the AFC West, which is Kansas City, which is the Raiders, which is the Chargers, which is Denver, who's an upcoming team. You got 3 teams that made the playoffs in that division. Then we got to go play do we play the NFC North? We have 3 teams there. So we get the Vikings, we get the Bears, the Bears look like they made coach changes better. They're all 4 teams, Packers and Lions. So this schedule is not going to be easy. So we're going to have to find a way to better ourselves, realize every game is a Super Bowl for us. We got to realize that I love division games. I put more emphasis on them. You've heard this through me that I love the division games are huge. 3-3 in the division. We were 0-6 in the division. That is a rarity. I don't think we've ever done that before. But 3-3 in the division is what we're going to need to be competitive. Whether we win a game on the road, but we have to. I'd like to say we can win our home games in the division. It'll be tough. We'll be an underdog probably in at least 2 of them with Washington and Philly, probably a third one with Dallas. So that's it. I looked at our schedule. Other than Carolina and the Raiders on the road, which we have a chance, I think we're an underdog at every single home game. The only 2 games that are in question to me are going to be Dallas and if San Francisco falters, but I think San Francisco would be a favorite over us. So the home schedule is very brutal. So that's the Giant take for today, and we'll come back with more next week as we hear it. Getting into the NBA and hockey playoffs. The NBA gets a large boost since Monday night in the games that they've had. We've had 3 unbelievably quality games. And then the shocker last night that surprised even me. I liked Minnesota so much in game 1. And little did I know that the shooting woes of Minnesota would show up a second straight game. But, so we're going to start off tonight with the Celtics and Knicks. Now, big story out of Boston is 15 for 60 from 3 in game 1, having a lead. And the things that I watch down the stretch, and I go back and forth with all the sports, so I don't really glue it into all the games. But from a gambling perspective standpoint, you had the 20-point lead. The Knicks were getting 9.5 points. And the fourth quarter, you can make a bet and say, okay, the Knicks were getting 10.5 down 9 in the fourth quarter. I kind of thought that the momentum had changed in that game. So that would be the game my advised bet would have been the Knicks at that time, plus 10.5. But I was watching something down the stretch when the game got really tight. It was a 1-possession game. That Jason Tatum had the ball a couple times against Brunson and Mitchell Robinson and settled for fadeaway threes that were off. And I just thought, a long time ago when the other legendary Celtics were there, they would take these guys, these smaller mismatches to the basket. And again, it opens up the kick for 3 because I think what the Knicks did was they put a lot of faces up on these guys on the perimeter and made the shots a little bit more difficult. Now, we know the history of the Celtics, and Joe Mazzulla came out and said they have to make these shots, and I get that. But 63s, only making 15 with a 20-point lead at one point in the game, can't you take some clock, maybe try to get the ball inside, maybe move it around a little bit, maybe drive and kick? You just didn't see that a lot of ourselves. A lot of one-on-one play and staying around the perimeter, and a lot of quick shots up a lead in the shot clock. I get that early on in the game when you're feeling the game out. But once we get to the late third quarter and you're up 15, don't you think you want to get the best shot, not the first quick shot? Just a thought. The way I thought about playing basketball is I thought, there are times you got to feel a game when you lose momentum by playing slower. But there are also times when you have a lead like that where you kind of got to get a feel. And I think this is what the coaching does. But Missoula's comment is make them this next time. And I guess we're going to see if they can make them tonight. I think Boston would cover the 10.5 tonight. I don't think they shoot at that clip. So I would say that between everything, they're going to figure it out. They have the better players. I think they're shocked. They had a 20-point lead, so even your 9.5 didn't look like a bad bet till midway through the fourth quarter when it looked like that game was going to come down the stretch and be a one-possession game at the end. So I lean a little bit toward Boston tonight. Second game tonight is very interesting. OKC has now moved up 11.5 after losing a late loss. OKC had a 9-point lead with 3 minutes to go, ended up blowing that game. So now they're saying, let's push the line higher. OKC's going to have more revenge. But here's my thought. Denver's playoff tested, and I said it with Defoe and bury your bookie on Monday. I think Denver might be the play here again. I just think 11.5 is too much. Now OKC starts to think about the blown lead. You had Holmgren miss 2 free throws that could have given him a 3-point lead down the stretch that might have secured overtime or possibly a win. And Jokic put up 44 and 22, and I thought this would be kind of a mismatch for him. I didn't think those would be the numbers, but it looks like, I would have to say that if I had to bet this game, I'm not in love with it. I would say Denver plus 11.5 would be my side in this particular game. And then I also would think that the over, which went to 240, I think is around 230 again. That this time it might be an over game too. I thought that OKC's defense would come about, but it looks like that they're going to have problems stopping this. If they have to double down on Joker every time, he's going to find open guys. I think an assist bet with Joker tonight could be another interesting play, as if they keep running 2 guys at him, he's going to find the open guys. A tremendous passer that he is, one of the best big man passers I think we've ever seen. So that's it. But the other game that was a shocker last night was Indiana-Cleveland, and I did see the end of this game. Cleveland missing three guys in their top 6. Evan Mobley didn't play, Garland didn't play, and neither did Hunter. So they were missing some pieces. And then the line and the way they played so well, tons of effort on defense, had that lead up to 20. You think they were going to go. Then all of a sudden, you started the fourth quarter, the game was 14. You could start to see Indiana coming. And what Indiana did, different than game 1, they went to the rim. I think their last 7 buckets were made in the paint. That's what teams have to do. You have to take that shot first and then look at the 3 as a drive and kick thing. That's just the way I think the game should be played. Of course, I'm off. I've heard the statistics that it's easier. If you could shoot 40% from 3, it's like shooting 60% from 2. I think Minnesota proved that, and a buddy who was at the game in L.A. saying how they shot 7 for 47 from 3 and still beat the Lakers in Game 5, because they shot like 80% from 2, and most of them were Gobert dunks and in the paint. But I see that it's one or the other, and I think like guys like Edward, guys like Indiana, they got to develop some mid-range, and Indiana has that ability to get to the basket. So very surprised at the line, Cleveland 1.5. I think you're going to have to look at the injuries to see who's coming back. If Garland comes back, they all come back. I see that line. If these guys are still out, I would think Indiana again, and I still think Indiana might be the side anyway, just because of the comeback, what that does mentally. It looked like Donovan Mitchell was getting all banged up. He was struggling to walk on that calf at the end of the game. And I think that's what caused a little bit of the problems. They relied on him so much because they didn't have the other players that probably got him injured even deeper. So we'll see if he can even go in Game 3. But I kind of lean Cleveland. Indiana. If there's no, if the injuries are still the same, and the Mitchell status is going to be important. And then Golden State, Minnesota last night was kind of a shocker. Steph gets hurt. Draymond Green now starts knocking down shots just like he did in Houston. When he starts knocking down threes, you're in trouble. Just because it's another guy you got to guard that you think takes a little bit away from the attention that Jimmy Butler or Steph Curry's going to get. But now with Steph out of the game, that line is going from 6.5 to 10. Steph looks like he's probably going to be out for Game 2 with an unfortunate hamstring injury. Hate to see one of the great shooters or the greatest shooter of all time to miss these kind of games that are so polarizing to the NBA fan and to basketball fans in general. But I think that Minnesota lay the 10 is going to be maybe the side here, but it's just so tough. I kind of would think more like an under game again, that Golden State will probably slow it down and try to get better shots. I don't know if they're going to try to run in transition and get into a running game with the size of Minnesota. But the other thing, too, is this might be a game that now Rudy Gobert might not get a lot of action to, because now if you don't have that Steph Curry attention and you can play things straight up, you might want to match up more sizable with Golden State, because it looks like they're going to rely a little bit more on Draymond Green bringing the ball up and him directing the offense, and that he could create a mismatch with Rudy Gobert. On the flip side of that, we kind of like that Draymond Green, if you're Minnesota, has to do more offensively now without Steph, because that takes away from his effectiveness on the defensive end. So we're going to see that series just became much more interesting. If you have Minnesota in the series, you kind of like it, even though you lost game one, and Steph is probably out for maybe games two, possibly game three. I don't know how long the injury is going to be, but a hamstring at his age could be a little bit longer, depending on the severity of it. The MRI will tell us today. So I don't know that I'd lay 10. I probably would bet the under in the game. I think the NBA spreads are tough. Tonight I would probably take Boston and Denver. Tomorrow, Indiana. And if I had to lay it, I just think Minnesota has to put their foot down at some point in the series, similar to what Houston did in game two in Houston the first round. So that's kind of where I'm at with that. Now going over to the hockey, which has been fantastic. 2 games last night. You get an overtime game with Carolina, getting a big win. And the Knights, after being up 2-0, get a disappointing 4-2 win. But you can see McDavid is a problem. I love him. He's a problem, and that is going to be a bad series. I think that win from Edmonton will probably give them the series now. Florida needs a win tonight, I think, to win this series. I think they have to go 1-1. I think, I just think being down 2-0 is going to be a tough uphill climb. The Stars start tonight. I think they win the series against the Jets. I just think they played better. I think they're the better team. I got to check the injury reports for the Jets. And Hallebuck has been a little shaky. Although Ottinger's been shaky most of the regular season, but right now he's playing better hockey, I think. So I lean the Stars in that. They are 125 tonight. I would bet them in game 1. I'm going to bounce back and advise people to take Florida game 2, just thinking that everything's on the button. They had a good comeback. They're down 4-1, got it to 4-3, and finished 5-4. So they scored 3 goals in that third period. I think the pressure was there. Maybe they found something. Kind of like teams that gain momentum in the final quarter or third period of a hockey game, leading them into the next game, especially in a series-type format. And then game 2 goes down at the Knights are 145 tomorrow, and I think that's an important game. The Knights are must-win. So the must-wins, I think, tonight are Florida and the Knights. And, of course, the must-wins in basketball, I think, lean toward probably Minnesota as a must-win. And I would think OKC's got to be a must-win. I don't think they want to go back down 2-0 to Denver. So we give you a lot of action. We'll be on the Big Gunner on Instagram, 1984 on Instagram. We're going to be back with Defo tomorrow. Talk a little bit more about the results tonight. My picks tonight would be Boston. I think they bounce back and hit more than 25% from 3. I think they get the win and cover the 10.5. I'm going to take Denver plus 11.5. And I'm going to take the Panthers and the Stars. So we're on 3 favorites and 1 dog. Yesterday, 3 favorites. Terrible day. Minnesota loses. The Dodgers get beat late in the 9th inning. And then the Knights up 2-0, blow a game. So, but one of the good things about hockey, and I'll leave you with this point, is that if you watch these games, especially the last 4 that have been played, you can find 4 of the last 5, because the Panthers didn't win Monday, but you can get a good price in the third period with the underdog. There's a lot of comeback wins in hockey. 2 goals from the Jets Sunday, 2 goals from the Stars on Saturday. Last night you had a 2-goal win, not in the third period, but the Edmonton, you got down 2-0 at the end of the first period. You could have got a nice price there if you took it. And then you had, Washington was up with 10 minutes to go in the game, 1-0, and you could have gotten a plus 400 with Carolina at that point. So there's a lot of prices to be had, good dogs. So next week we'll get back to you. Sorry about yesterday. Had a little work to do, so we missed our typical Tuesday at 10 a.m. Thank you for being and checking in with us today at Wednesday at 10 Eastern, and we'll see you with Defo tomorrow, and then we're back with you on Tuesday. Let's go Blue and go Giants.